signs.
Nobody realized when you put all the symptoms together that I was having huge problems in my brain.
Had she had not had the tumor removed, I believe within about 6 months she would have passed away.
I knew that I had to prepare myself for battle.
Welcome to The Incurables. I'm Don Wildman. Headaches are among the most common of medical ailments. We typically take pain relievers and they go away, rarely suspecting that the discomfort could be a warning sign of something far more grave. Such was the case of Bonnie Lovett, a career woman who had been living with headaches since her early 20s. Little did she know that her life on the fast track was about to come to a screeching halt.
I was going to church, and I'm driving on the Florida Turnpike from Lake Worth, going to Palm Beach, and I started driving, doing the speed limit, which was 70 miles an hour, and lo and behold, all the cars were like driving and going into this abyss. And the lanes on the roads, the white lane was going up like this. I pulled over, and I started freaking out because I thought I was going to die. And I was scared to death. And I'm honking the horn, going, please help, help, with my window rolled down. Nobody helped me. I prayed like I never prayed before. And I asked for the faith, strength, and courage to get to the hospital. I put my hand over my eye like this. And I drove like 45 miles an hour. And when I got to the hospital, a woman helped me with my car.
She had thought she was possibly having a stroke. She had pain going down her arms, visual disturbances.
When the young person who did the CAT scan found out that there was a very large mass on the right side of my brain, she goes, I think that the doctor needs to speak to you. And I was diagnosed with a very large, aggressive brain tumor.
She wanted to take some time to think over the surgery that she was going to get. She was worried about developing permanent brain damage, becoming a vegetable, losing her mentality, becoming paralyzed.
When Bonnie explained to me that they wanted to do an exploratory surgery, I was very concerned.
It was a very dangerous situation and it just had to be removed.
Bonnie Lovett grew up in an idyllic, small-town setting in Rockland County, New York.
It was a great place to grow up. You played kickball in the streets and rode your bicycle without helmets. You had your parents, and then you had every other parent that lived on the street who told you to go home for dinner.
Just a regular childhood.
In high school, I was a dynamo, I was energetic, I loved life, I embraced life, I was dancing, I was a ballerina.
She was very, very outgoing.
When I went to college, I worked part-time and went to college full-time. I went to the city like once a week. Life was so much fun.
Around the time that I started becoming a teenager and she was well into it, we started growing apart. And it used to bother both of us, but we're two different personalities, so we just figured that it was that.
Bonnie moved to New York City and became a Wall Street stockbroker. She quickly rose through the ranks.
I was on the fast track to success. Everything was positive.
Bonnie is the type of person that when she knows what she wants, she goes and gets it.
Up until the age of 35, I was an overachiever. I made a goal for myself, I did the goal. What dreams I created, I wished for, I made happen. Then the bottom started to come out at age 35.
Bonnie had been living for years with symptoms, the severe implications of which she was completely unaware.
There were signs, but none of us saw the signs.
I got more tired. The headaches started coming. My personality, my moods went up and down.
The relationship with Bonnie got worse and worse. and we got to a point where we stopped talking altogether.
I thought because I was putting in 14-hour days that maybe I was just tired. So I shifted my profession to becoming a trainer for life insurance. And that got to be too much for me. So then I did health insurance.
I've known Bonnie Lovett for about 7 years. Through business, she's in the insurance business. She's a very vivacious, energetic, and enthusiastic girl. I noticed that her mentality was slowing down. Words were slurring.
She was always talking with slurry speech. You could barely understand her. She talked very quick.
Then my memory started to go. And my girlfriends go, oh, this is perimenopausal, menopausal. Don't worry, it's what you're going to go through. Then my sense of my taste and smell started to affect me also.
Looking back, probably somebody should have looked deeper into what was going on with her.
With my cup of coffee, I would pop 4 aspirins every morning, and that's how I'd start my day. Thinking, okay, here's another day, we got to get through this.
She started out with sort of low-grade headaches, visual problems, auditory problems, balance problems, changes in her personality.
As my symptoms increased, I had trouble negotiating with the world. So slowly, my income started decreasing all the way down. Nobody realized when you put all the symptoms together that I was having huge problems in my brain.
Life became increasingly more difficult. Bonnie could barely pay her bills. Her relationship suffered. One day, driving to church, Bonnie's symptoms overwhelmed her. She ended up in the hospital.
They did a CAT scan on me. They did an MRI with contrast. They did blood work on me. And from the CAT scan and the MRI, their diagnosis was that I had an aggressive brain tumor. This was a very large mass brain tumor, the size of a grapefruit. And it was pressing on my optical nerve. I knew that this wasn't going away, and I knew that I was going to have to take care of it soon. Except the soon part was not soon enough.
Bonnie Lovett's career and personal life were shattered. She and her husband were devastated and didn't know where to turn.
I got a call from her husband, Stuart, and Stuart told me that Bonnie was in the hospital and that Bonnie had a brain tumor.
I was in shock because I couldn't believe this was happening to me. I didn't have time to have a brain tumor.
She just said, you know, I have a 4-pound brain tumor. It's the size of a grapefruit. It was just very matter of fact.
I was scared to death that I was going to die.
Bonnie realized that to survive, she would need to have the tumor removed. But another shock awaited her.
When I went to the hospital, to the emergency room, and gave them my insurance card, the woman goes, "You have no insurance." I looked at her and said, no, I have insurance. I know that. I found out the insurance bill went to the wrong address.
If you don't have health insurance and you are released from a hospital, there's no coverage in the community for you at all. You have to find your coverage, and there is no insurance company in the world that's going to cover you after they find out you've been diagnosed with a brain tumor.
It was very challenging to find a doctor because nobody wanted to do it at the healthcare district prices.
So in the meantime, someone who's released from the hospital who's had an emergency will not get good care.
We got dismissed from St. Mary's Hospital
with no services to go to in the community.
Stuart, my husband, my sister were finding a doctor for me, so they called up Miami. They called all the hospitals. It was the same story over and over again.
As time progressed between her diagnosis and the time she had the surgery, things started getting worse with her.
My body started to shut down. I had trouble speaking. I was going blind. It was hard for me to feed myself. I couldn't walk. I had a club foot. The pain was so awful and so severe. I felt like my skull was going to crack open. I hurt so badly, and I didn't want to be in pain anymore. I started putting a will together.
She was sinking quickly.
I didn't think that anybody was going to be able to help me.
Things just were not, they were progressing very quickly and they were going the wrong direction, very fast.
Had she had not had the tumor removed, I believe within about 6 months she would have passed away.
At her time of greatest need, Bonnie reunited with her estranged sister.
Stuart, my husband, called up my sister Randy and said, please help. So my sister came over. She started visiting and she started helping. And we started talking.
I thought to myself, oh my God, if the reason why we weren't getting along and my impression of Bonnie was that she was hard to get along with was because of the brain tumor, then I had to rethink everything.
And we made up.
I guess I felt guilty that I didn't believe her at first, because what I do for a living is I work with people with disabilities, and the one person that needed me, I didn't believe.
My sister did the groundwork of getting information for me.
I did some research with the Traumatic Brain Injury Association, tried to get as much information as I could. For me, it was natural just to call up somebody and say, okay, what is it that you can do to help her?
As Bonnie sought out a surgeon who was willing to operate, she explored alternative health options to prepare her for surgery.
Before I had my surgery, I knew that I had to prepare myself for battle. I heard about Hippocrates Health Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida, through friends, referrals, and I read about them. It was only 10 minutes away. I thought it was a good idea.
I had known Stuart on a work level, and I got a desperate call from him one evening where he said his wife was diagnosed with brain cancer. And with all of my experience, that's not something you want to hear. Brain cancer is a major league cancer. Shortly after, it may have been a week or so, I said, please bring her in, and they arrived here. She could not stand up. He practically had to carry her in. And when she did take steps, they were baby steps. She was disoriented, her eyes were crossing, her color was bad. And like anyone who's given a significant diagnosis, she was in great fear.
He had some recommendations. He knew that I was going to still need the surgery regardless. Okay, I was too far gone.
Complementary health care does not preclude any form of health care. It becomes patient-oriented rather than ego or economic orientation.
Brian recommended certain supplements for my brain.
Specific and tailored nutrient supplementation.
He also recommended a diet of living and raw foods exclusively.
Living foods are foods that are unprocessed and uncooked.
His suggestion was come every day to drink wheatgrass and Hippocrates.
We make juices here every day out of sprouts and cucumbers and celery. We call them green juices.
And also therapy to help shrink the tumor in my brain.
When you deal with tumor masses, one of the things that you have to always focus in on is to bring blood to that particular area. And the way that you can do this naturally without invading is use electromagnetic therapy, and when that's not available when you're home, manual magnet therapy. As you put a magnet on the body, be it electromagnetic, medical therapy, or magnetic, it actually attracts more red blood cells to that area.
While Bonnie readied her body for surgery using natural remedies, her husband narrowed the search for a surgeon. Still, Bonnie was fearful.
Bonnie was afraid of coming out of surgery not being who she is.
After a prolonged struggle with the healthcare system, Bonnie's search for a surgeon to perform her brain surgery was finally over. She and her husband traveled to the National Institute of Health in Washington, D.C.
Bonnie was very fortunate that her husband, Stuart, is an ex-Navy SEAL and had some contacts in Washington, D.C., and made a few phone calls, and they admitted her and operated on her for, I believe, was free of charge.
They paid for our flights. They paid for everything. My surgery, they paid for the flights, everything. I packed 2 bags, one for my husband, this big, full of clothes for a week. My bag was this big with 1 flip-flop, a pair of women's underclothing, a skirt, and that was it. That was my suitcase, because I didn't think I was going to come home.
The news from the National Institute of Health was encouraging. Bonnie had a meningioma, a benign and operable tumor.
Meningioma comes from one of the layers of the brain and starts to grow inwards, which is a common tumor when it comes to brain tumors. It's a very slow growing tumor, which is good because you have time to deal with it.
Bonnie finally went in for surgery, but it was a lengthy and complicated procedure.
My surgery was 7 hours. Long, long surgery. And I lost 7 pints of blood on the OR table.
After drilling 6 holes in Bonnie's head, the surgeons removed a 4-pound tumor.
The morning after the surgery, a friend of mine called to see how I was doing and to quiz me to make sure if I have a mind or not. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm brushing my teeth, sitting in a chair, and it's 8:30 in the morning." So she goes, "How do you know it's 8:30 in the morning?" I said, "Well, I looked up at the clock and it's 8:30. She goes, "And why are you brushing your teeth?" Because I said, "I like to brush my teeth. I haven't brushed my teeth before surgery." So she goes, "That's great. And you're in a chair?" Oh my God, that's like unbelievable, Bonnie. I can't, because when I saw you last time, your husband had to carry you to visit us. She goes, "That's fabulous."
I was amazed because I assumed that there would be all this time of rehabilitation therapy that Bonnie would have to go through.
The day after my surgery, I had no headaches. It was fantastic. No headaches for the first time in my life.
Once the brain tumor was removed, her speech was crystal clear.
I knew that I was going to be okay.
After her successful surgery, Bonnie immersed herself in her former life.
I thought I was Superwoman again. I thought I can go back to the same person that I was. Slowly, there was sushi and turkey and carrot cake and cannolis. Well, 4 months later, I started not to feel good again. So when they did an MRI, they found 2 small brain tumors. I knew that I had to change my life.
When Bonnie's MRI revealed 2 new brain tumors, her doctors proposed radiation. Bonnie felt that straying from the alternative treatment caused the problem, so she went back on the program.
We decided to do all alternative health. There was no way I was going to do radiation, because when you do radiation, 5 years to 25 years later, you're going to have a malignant tumor somewhere else on your body.
When you assault a disease with a knife, or you move something around in the body, it has its own life and wants to come back. As always, the tumor came back, and it came back with vengeance.
I put my tail between my legs and said, "Brian, I really need help."
I think it renewed her commitment, not to a program, but to herself.
I did living in raw foods, 100%. I made everything delicious, instead of eating the lasagna, now I made vegetable lasagna with zucchini.
Bonnie adhered to her living foods regimen, but the doctors pushed for radiation. Bonnie asked for a new MRI and said she would agree to radiation if her condition was unchanged.
The MRI showed nothing. The 2 brain tumors were gone. I beat it by doing living in raw foods, by doing alternative health.
What stuns a lot of people listening today is how she recovered it all without using dramatic therapies and healing procedures. What stuns me is how people survive most of those dramatic procedures.
Your medicine is your food.
Grateful and desiring to share her success, Bonnie founded the outreach program, A Day of Sunshine.
One of the things that people need is something positive. They need joy, and they need something uplifting. A Day of Sunshine is exactly that. It brings joy and faith to those that are being challenged as part of their journey today.
Bonnie's work with A Day of Sunshine is a labor of love. People that are sick feel sicker when they look sicker. So Bonnie wants to make people feel better on the inside and on the outside.
We might visit them at their home and do a manicure or a pedicure on them. We do a mini facial. We might tidy up their bedroom and bathroom or kitchen and TV room. We might fold some laundry.
Today, Bonnie works in the health industry and devotes time to her charitable organization. Her outlook on life has been transformed.
Today, I'm enjoying my life, L-I-F-E, and I'm living. I'm taking karate. I am teaching classes. I am walking with my dogs.
We're now friends. And it's sort of like the brain tumor separated us in our younger years and then brought us together later on.
My life prior to the brain tumor was very ambitious, positive, and driven. After my brain surgery and having had a brain tumor, my life is living and having balance and peace and tranquility.
For a hard-driving overachiever, Bonnie Lovett's brain tumors were a terrifying wake-up call. But she confronted her fears and the imbalances in her life. Reevaluating her priorities, she repaired relationships with loved ones and set out on a more natural path, headed in a bold new direction toward wellness.